Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline, good friend of the program, former BYU and NFL quarterback John Beck.
Oh, Johnny Beck's here.
Welcome, John. It's great to have you on during rivalry week, man. How are you?
I'm doing good, guys.
Johnny Harleen is one of the alumni flag bearers. Now, Jerem texted him along with like 100 other of his friends, maybe you did too, and told him to run right to the spot where he caught the game winner in 2006. Now, is that asking too much of Johnny?
That would be pretty sweet.
Right? I think we need to put the pressure on.
That's a good idea. Whoever was the first person to think of that was pretty good thinking.
John, can you believe it's been 10 years since Beck to Harleen? And that's the
No.
last win for BYU in Salt Lake?
I can't believe it. But then when I look at my 4 kids and I got to have a birthday cake with 35 on top of it, yeah, then I do.
You're old, John. Is it weird getting old?
So wait, say that again. Sorry, it cut out.
I know it's fine. It's probably good that it did cut out, so I'm going to say it again. Yeah, you're old. We're getting old, man. Is it weird?
Well, you know what? It is weird because I seriously don't feel that old. I'm fortunate that I get to spend the time in my job around a bunch of high school, college, and young, pro guys. So golly, sometimes I feel the exact same age as them until a night like a few weeks ago when I got to have a birthday cake with 35 on it. I'm like, wait, something is up.
John, how has that play evolved in the telling over the last 10 years, or how have people reacted to that since then?
Well, I'm like a fish story. I can't change the size of it. So it stays the same. So that's the one thing that's remained constant. The story remains the same. But I think the thing that's been cool for me throughout my life is that wherever I go, people have me attached to that play, and they can tell me where they were when it happened or what situation they had or what experience it was like for them. And for me, that's kind of been the coolest part, Sometimes Ute fans kind of, unhappily tell me what happened with their life at that point when that happened. But it's been cool to be around BYU fans that just, hey, I was at my brother-in-law's place. I was here. I was there. Or I've even come across people that I was sitting in the stands at this spot. And so for me, hearing their personal stories about where they were and what was taking place during that play, that's been the cool part for me.
John Beck with us on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline. We are live from Deseret First Credit Union on a Friday, game day eve for BYU and Utah. What do you expect in tomorrow's game between the Cougars and the Utes with BYU's first-year coaching staff under Kalani Sitake going against his former mentor, Kyle Whittingham?
Okay, I'm really excited for the game. Yesterday, I actually went on the Pac-12 network and watched the replay of the Southern Utah game just because I wanted to see. I really haven't paid attention to Utah football and knowing who they had playing quarterback or what's going on in the situation. And I kind of wanted to see what the matchup was like. And I'm just excited for the game in general because it is a BYU-Utah game. And I think that when they left the conference and BYU became independent and that went away for a little while, that was just something didn't feel right. And the fact that they've been able to play a few times recently, I was at the bowl game with you guys. To have the bowl game go down the way that it did, there's a lot of players from BYU's team that were, starters on the field for that bowl game. So I'm sure that in their hearts and minds, that plays a part in it. When I was a player, I carried with me the past BYU-Utah games. Well, from my sophomore to junior year, I remembered those games. I remember how they went down. I remember how I felt. And I felt like all the things that I could take to help me prepare better for the one that was at hand was going to help. So I'm sure there's a lot of excitement for the players that have been on the team and then also for the fan base in general because it's the BYU-Utah game, and it feels a little weird because it's at the beginning of the season, but it doesn't change the fact that it's still the Holy War, and that's exciting.
You ran out one of the 3 alumni flags last week. What did you notice from this BYU team that gives you hope that BYU goes into Salt Lake and wins?
Well, first the real cool part about that was I got to run out with Max. We both of us, same high school, same hometown. And before the game, I got to go in the locker room and see all those coaches. And it's crazy the ties that I have with almost every single coach on that staff. And that, to me, is an exciting thing because I know them all so well. I know how much it means to all of them. And kind of the vibe in the locker room, it was so calm, confident, and relaxed when I went in there. Like, I did not get a sense that anybody on that team was overly nervous or worried about what the outcome was going to be. And that excites me. When you get that feeling of the team is going to go out and play with the fearless mindset, and a lot of that stems from how the coach acts. how the assistant coaches act. Players spend all of their time around the coaches. And if you have coaches that worry or coaches that are afraid of the outcome or undecisive or all those things, it can affect the player. And to know that that was the feeling when I walked in the locker room, I'm guessing it's going to be the exact same this week. Those guys, it's going to be the same calm, confidence, and they're going to go and play fearless football. And I'm sure that emanates from the way that Kalani is when he talks to the team. So that, to me, gives a lot of confidence in the way I feel this team's going to go walking into the stadium up there tomorrow.
I get the sense, John, that this game has more pressure carried with it for Utah than BYU because they are the favorites and they are home. And Kyle Whittingham is supposed to beat his understudy, per se. Do you feel like there is more pressure on Utah to win this game compared to BYU?
You know what? Because it's the game that it is, I think there's pressure on both teams. And that's just me being honest, because I think both teams know so much rides on this game. And, I've read a couple things. I never, ever used to read articles. Even when I, first left BYU, I never paid attention to them. But now that I'm no longer a player, I do, I popped onto ESPN. I popped onto a few things. All right, let's see what's going on. And I read a couple quotes by some Utah, I can't remember who it was. I don't know if it was former coaches. It might have even been Norm Chow with different people saying that the rivalry game means more to BYU than it does to Utah because Utah's in the Pac-12 conference, and even if they lose to BYU, they still have all the conference stuff at play. And I don't believe that one bit because you're still the University of Utah and you're still in the state of Utah, and that still matters to the fan base. And you can feel what games matter to your fan base. And so I think there's pressure on both teams. Neither team wants to walk out of that stadium being the loser and then having to tell themselves, oh, sorry, guys, there's a lawnmower walking by me. That just totally screwed that up.
All good.
Anyway, this guy's, circling me. He, won't leave me alone. Okay,
go away, man.
Sorry. I know, seriously. But, neither team wants to walk out of there the loser and have to tell themselves, hey, everything's going to be okay the rest of the season. Every guy on that team wants to nail that down, get the W, and be able to be like, all right, good. For my season, we beat our opponent. We beat, Utah or however it goes, both ways. So I think the pressure lands in both teams' laps, and then how are they going to respond to that pressure?
John, since 1972, a senior quarterback for BYU against Utah is 12-2. Taysom Hill, fifth-year senior. You were a senior in 06 when you won that. Max Hall in 09, that's BYU's last win against Utah, was a senior. What role does that play in that game, being a senior?
Well, I guess the odds are definitely in our favor, huh? So I think that's a good thing. I know Taysom's been around the rivalry a lot. He's definitely not somebody that's going to be overwhelmed by the situation. I'm sure he's been anticipating this game, wanting this game for a long time. And I think that as a players around that senior quarterback, I'm sure one of the big reasons of why it has an impact is because the way that it affects the players around the quarterback, not necessarily the quarterback himself, but by them knowing, hey, this is our experienced guy. They're going to play with a mindset that is going to be advantageous to that team. So I would say that's probably the biggest reason why. And I think that, Utah has a new guy coming that's only really been with them for a little while. And, who's going to give you the advantage? The guy that's been the leader for one team for a long time or the guy that's the new guy for the other team?
John Beck with us on BYU Sports Nation, former BYU quarterback. What does Taysom Hill do that impresses you the most, John?
Well, I can give you what Taysom Hill did in the past seasons, and I think that's an easy answer for everybody, just the unbelievable athlete that he is. To have a guy with the ability that he had to throw the football and then tag that with just how unreal he was at running, that was super impressive. Now what he did this last game, I know that there's some people that have said, well, golly, he's not the same guy. I thought Taysom played in a manner that showed he's maturing as a quarterback. One of the first conversations I ever had with Steve Young was my freshman year, and I had busted my hand in a game, but he called me and said, listen, I'm really impressed with the way you make plays. I love the way you run around, but you have to be available for your team. You can be as exciting of a runner as you want, but I learned as a running quarterback, you have to be available for your team to play every down. So when I saw Taysom the way that he played this last game, I thought he was so smart with what he did at the end of runs. He has the ability, I swear the dude could almost break almost like every tackle he is in because he's so strong and so powerful. But I saw him realize I don't need to fight for 1 extra yard right here. I can kind of just take a glancing blow, get out of bounds. I can get down right here. So for me, I saw a matured quarterback when it comes to the way that a quarterback has to play if you want to continue on and play at the next level. And those guys, I believe, are the ones that are the hardest ones to play against, meaning from a defensive standpoint, because they are so smart with what they do. And so that's what I am impressed with. I thought Taysom did a really good job of managing the game. You could tell that Ty is putting a lot of checks on him at the line of scrimmage with the run game of where he's directing the runs. And I thought that because the way they effectively ran the ball, the way that Taysom was getting him in the right runs, it then set up the keeper game, getting out on the edge. So I'm kind of excited for what they can do now based off of what they showed last week. Some people might say, well, hey, BYU's a team that needs to throw the ball for 300 yards. Last week they didn't, but what they did do is if you're the University of Utah, based off of the tape that BYU put out last week, you have so many things that now you have to stop. BYU showed so many dimensions last week that it's going to open up things for this week, and that's something that excites me.
Fantastic stuff, John. 35 years young. Should we just call it that?
Do what my wife does. She tries to put my actual age down, and I'm like, babe, come on, just put 29.
Yeah.
Like, please. She did it for like 4 years in a row. She just put 29 on there. I'm like, come on,
Nice.
just keep it this.
Oh, that's good stuff. All right, John, looking forward to the game tomorrow. We appreciate the insight and the conversation as always.